Coriolanus, Act 4, Scene 5, line 63 through 146. This will be the analysis. Starting off around line 66, um, Coriolanus says, "To thee particularly, and to all the Volsces, great hurt and mischief thereto witness may." That kind of puts this kind of reputation and infamy towards Coriolanus. Mischief is historically known for being used to specifically note demonic or supernatural action. So he's kind of saying to himself that he's basically a devil. He's admitting that he is basically um, the devil to Aufidius. So at line 67, the my surname Coriolanus, there to witness may my surname Coriolanus. Coriolanus, he's listing the pains and dangers to Aufidius. That it's interesting that he's telling Aufidius all of this because it kind of goes back to the scene where he's asking people for their votes, and he was supposed to show them his wounds, but he didn't. But instead, he's kind of showing his wounds, or at least being more open about them to his enemy, to the man who gave him those wounds. It's kind of like showing that even though they are enemies, even though they are on opposing sides, and they should want to kill each other right now, that Coriolanus at least sees Aufidius as more deserving of knowing about his wounds, about knowing about what he went through, even though he was there and he's the enemy. To Coriolanus, Aufidius is more worthy of seeing of this respect than his own people, of the lesser people of Rome. Line 72, only that name remains. It kind of foreshadows the scene in later in Act 5 where his mother, Volumnia, warns him that if he goes through with this, the only thing that Rome will remember about him is his name, and that name will go down in infamy. They'll say he was great once, and that's kind of interesting that this is foreshadowing that he feels right now that he only has his name, and he hates that. Now that's like he was kicked out of Rome and he lost everything. And then that's what Volumnia uses, the fact that the only thing that he'll have left of his legacy is his name, and that name will be hated. The next line, line 73, envy of the people, where he says, the cruelty and envy of the people permitted by our dastard nobles, who have all forsook me. So he has this idea that the people were envious of him. Now, it's debatable as to whether, as is said through the nuance of the play, is whether this is a genuine envy that the people that Brutus and Sicinius were, as either of themselves or the people as a whole, were kind of envious of his position, or whether it's just Coriolanus' own pride that makes him think the people hated him and wanted to get rid of him because they were envious, not because they were starving, which is what they said they were. So I personally tend to lean towards that his that his own pride makes him think that the reason that the people wanted him out of Rome was because they were jealous and envious of his position. In 76, have all forsook me, hath devoured the rest, and suffered me by the voice of slaves to be whipped out of Rome. So, as Dr. Barnes established, that voice also could mean a literal, the metaphorical voice as the voice of the people, what the people want, or it could just be another term for votes. But it implies that the people who it's kind of him digging at the people of Rome, saying that these people who are basically slaves, who should have no personal freedom and don't really have any freedom, they still have power that is kind of undeserved. But it may also be more directly uh, insulting Brutus and Sicinius, who are in a sense the voice and the votes of the people, and he's kind of saying that um oh sorry they that what he's basically saying, that when he says that they are the representatives of the people, that they are the voice of the people, but he's calling the people slaves. He's saying they're the representatives of slaves. He's and he feels that what they have is essentially an empty title of when you're the representatives of people who have of slaves, of people who have no rights or freedom, then what really is your position? What can you actually do? He's saying that they don't have any real power, or at the very least, in his opinion, they shouldn't have any real power. Going on to line 82, full quit of my banishers. So to me, this line that he wants to quit his banishers, Coriolanus, is that that he is banished. He kind of he wants to go against Rome. He wants to hurt Rome back because he feels like that's the one way that he can quit Rome. And to me, this is because even though he's already banished, he has such a pride within himself that he can't really perceive that he's the kind of man who doesn't want to go out by the will of others. He has a pride that makes him want to go out on his own terms. He doesn't see himself as being quit of Rome because he's not the one who quit it, and he doesn't want to be known that he's quit of Rome because of what other people did. He wants to be known as a man who quit Rome because of some of his actions. Going down to line 84, a heart of wreck in thee that wilt revenge. So, a heart of wreck. He he basically he asks if Aufidius wants to do damage upon anything, hoping he'll be satisfied with Rome, because I think this is his heart of wreck. Like, there's clearly this a term that that is brilliant that I've heard is soulmates but for murder. That's kind of their relationship, and I think he's asking if so, and he's very vague with what the heart of wreck is, of this heart that wants to inflict pain and that wants to inflict damage. Coriolanus is hoping that Aufidius would be satisfied with wrecking Rome rather than wrecking him, which he probably wants to do both, but he's hoping that by appealing to Aufidius's sense of honor, and that he'll be able to convince him to be satisfied with wrecking Rome. Back on 90, on 90, against my cankered country, and cankered is a term that usually means impaired or sick. So he sees Rome as sick or ailing, and it's degrading, and that's what we again feel what his opinion was throughout the beginning, that this wouldn't lead to anything good, that giving the plebeians a vote, that would ruin Rome, and so he sees Rome as weak and cankered because it gives the people a voice, it gives the common man a voice, and I think that, and he's also saying that Rome is cankered to kind of tell Aufidius that, hey, Rome is very weak right now. They are giving the voice to the people. The people are stupid, or they don't know what's best for the country, and they're ruining it. So they're at the weak point. So he's kind of enticing him with that. But he also says the spleen of all the underfiends. So once again, we have this as reference before with mischief, with him doing mischief onto the Volsces and to Aufidius specifically. This idea that Coriolanus, in battle at least, and to his enemies, is seen as like a fiend or a devil who is an opponent to all that is good, or at least all that his opponents see as good. So, and that he specifically wants to be the spleen of all the underfiend to Rome. He kind of acknowledges that he can be a fiend to Rome, and that he intentionally wants to be Rome. He wants to be known as their form of that. He wants to be feared as their devil. Um, if we go down all the way to 98, drawn turns of blood out of thy country's breast. So that's a more of body politic, where I think Coriolanus, he sees the army as the blood and the heart of a country. So it kind of I think that works that well, that the army, that the military is the kind of the thing that keeps the country going, is because of how he was raised from a young age. As soon as he was old enough, a Volumnia shoved him into military service, and he's won his honor. His title Coriolanus comes from his military service. So he has a very militaristic worldview on top of his pride and his sense of nobility and class. So we get further sense of his moral of his ideals and his viewpoint that the military is what defines Rome, which kind of goes against what Brutus and Sicinius said, where what is the city but the people? They say that the common people are what would Rome be without everyone who lives there. But he's saying that, well, the city wouldn't be anything without the army or military, which on the one hand you can kind of see, because without an army to protect it, Rome would just be invaded and taken over by whatever warring barbarian camp or army just happened to be passing through. Going to down to 102, he says, this is where Aufidius begins. O Marcius, each word thou hast spoken has weeded from thy heart a root of ancient envy. So this is kind of a nature metaphor, but interestingly, it's more in a negative light, that this imagery of a tree and the roots. It's that it's an old thing, an old ancient thing that's a part of nature. It's natural, but it's envy. It's a negative quality. It's a venial it's a cardinal sin. So it's just interesting to me that you have a nature metaphor that isn't meant to be very positive. But envy. I think this is also interesting. It's also interesting to note that Phidias doesn't use a word like ancient hatred uh, or vengeance or disgust. He uses envy because he's kind of letting Phidias is kind of letting Marcius know that he kind of admires him and possibly even adores him in certain ways, at least to the degree that he wants to be him or have similar honors to him. He would like Marcius's title, except on the side of the Volsces. He wants to be the victor of another city, a different Corali, but on for that would benefit the Volsces. I think he kind of wants that, and so this envy isn't just out of hatred for what he did. It's that he admires Marcius Coriolanus, and that he kind of wants to be him in a certain way. But one thing I did forget to mention in 101, he says, "O Marcius, And that's notable because he still does, unlike everyone else, he, particularly in Rome, he doesn't call Coriolanus once he gets that title, even though Marcius Coriolanus told him right at the beginning, I was given the title Coriolanus for his conquering of Coriolis. So he he still has an undercurrent of hatred or a grudge against him because even though he's going to accept him in this scene, he's not acknowledging that name. He's still mad about that. He won't give him that title. Um so going down to 105 through 107, we have I not believe them more than thee, all noble Marcius. Let me twine my arms about thy body, where against my grained ash 100 times hath broke and scarred the room with splinters. Okay, that is a that is a lot. So we have, let me twine thy arms about thy body. So slight homoerotic tension, where he doesn't just want to embrace him. He doesn't say, let me hug you." He says he wants to twine. He wants to tie himself to his body, which is very much stronger than just saying, let me hug you or embrace you. It's twining. It's kind of has this notion of not wanting to let him go, tying him to Marcius's body. But give it. Sorry. So my granite has 100 times as broken, scarred the splinters. I think I. Sorry, I think I might have missed labeled the notes at one point, but regardless, so he describes Marcus as the anvil of my sword. So he's saying that Marcius, he that every time he strikes against Marcius, every time they quarrel, it's when hitting his sword. His sword could be a metaphor for the for tenor for his battle prowess. That because an anvil is something that is used to forge weaponry and improve it and repair it. So he's kind of saying that every time he meets with Coriolanus and they fight, he's improving. He's getting better and stronger. But sword could also be phallic imagery, and by improving and hardening his sword, it could mean that he's becoming aroused by Coriolanus. So but we also have in 105 that Ophidius says, "My arms about my body." Oh yes, I'm sorry, I misread something. So it describes his in 105 in 107 he describes his grained ash, and I forgot something that the grained ash, that's a description of an ashen lance. So I did get a note right. I just didn't mark it down. A lance is another, like a sword. It's a very phallic weapon. And it's described as his grained ash 100 times hath broke and scarred the moon with splinters. So here he's describing Marcius as the moon. So the moon. He's talking about him fighting Marcius and using the metaphor of a moon to represent him, but it's interesting that because the lance is a phallic imagery, but the moon is associated with the with Diana, who's the Roman form of Artemis, the god, and the moon does in this context has associations with femininity and virginity through Diana or Artemis, and it's once again you get this homoerotic tension where he's kind of subtly saying that Marcius is seen as a beautiful virgin. He's associating him with a thing that is the domain of a beautiful virgin goddess that he's constantly piercing with his lance. But one thing that should be noted is that historically Artemis or Diana were virgins for a reason. They were goddesses of the or one goddess of the hunt, and they were strong, independent. They could definitely hold their own in a fight. And it's kind of he's kind of saying that he has a desire. It could be interpreted that Aufidius is aroused and that he does see Coriolanus as this kind of image of femininity or virginity that does arouse him, that he wants to penetrate with his lance. But also, by comparing him to Diana and Artemis, he's also kind of admitting that just because he's attracted to him and sees him in his feminine form, it doesn't mean that he can't fight. It doesn't mean that Coriolanus isn't a fighter. Moving on. Sorry about that. 109 through 113. Sorry. Sorry. The anvil of my sword and do contest as hotly as nobly with thy love. Yes. So we went over that. But more than that, it also shows that he kind of sees Aufidius in a way which it reminds me of that line, as hotly as noble with thy love as ever in ambitious strength I did contest against thy valor. That they do have this kind of murder but for soulmates kind of relationship where there's this confusion between passionate love and passionate hate, but there's this confusion between a sexual encounter and a violent encounter. And I can't help but think of Theseus's line of wooing Hippolyta with his sword, which has another double entendre in itself, but also admits that they met through battle. So in this case, it's Aufidius wooing Coriolanus with his sword, or vice versa. 115. Rapt. The line is, "Thou noble thing, more dances my rapt heart than when I first when I first my wedded mistress saw." So, rapt. That's like, it gives the image of his heartbeat, of not just the sound of knocking, of fast knocking, but of rapidness, of his heart beating so fast when he sees Coriolanus. And once again, it's ambiguous as to why it's beating. It just means there's a lot of adrenaline, a lot of passion, and a lot of action. Now, it doesn't clarify whether the rapt beat of his heart is because of affection and love, or if it's because of hatred and fury. 112. It's sorry. 117. Mars could not. Where he says, "Why thou Mars? I tell thee, we have a power on foot, and I had a purpose once more to thy target. from thy brawn. So on 117 he says that. And Mars, I think he says Mars because it could refer to the Roman god of war, but well, I don't really have proof for this. Mars could also be an abbreviation of Martius. You have all the letters. It'd be similar to someone calling someone named William Will. It has that same, and it also adds the confusion of whether Martius and Mars are separate characters, and may imply that, once again, this idea of envy, that to a degree, Aufidius has this kind of awe towards Martius, towards Coriolanus. He kind of idolizes him in a way, as you would a god. Line 118. So we have a power on foot, and I had a purpose. And I had purpose once more to hew thy target from thy brawn. So power on foot. This is possibly referring to the Volsces foot soldiers, or that the Volsces are already on the move. It's not really clear, but it does harken back to the body politic, where foot could be the foot soldiers, or it could literally just be this use of a noun as a verb, that they are on foot, that they are footing it towards across the land for whatever reason. His army is either mobilized, or he just has a lot of foot soldiers ready to go whenever Martius approves. In 121 through 122, we have 12 several times, and I have nightly since dreamt of encounters twixt thyself and me. Again, this confusion between whether these nightly encounters are revenge dreams, or whether they're wet dreams. It's not clear. He keeps repeating this, and it's not just homoerotic tension. It's this confusion between passionate love and passionate hatred. Because, and once again, I use the terms. I'm going to use the term soulmate, but for murders. In 123, he says, we have been down together in my sleep, unbuckling helms, fisting each other's throats. Okay, a lot to unpack there. So, down together, either on the ground fighting, or down together in bed, unbuckling each other's unbuckling helms could just mean like they're tearing at each other's armor, or they are literally undressing. And when they say we have been fisting each other's throats, that would fisting does have another meaning, but that's more, I believe that's more in modern vernacular, so I'm not sure if it would necessarily apply there, but death of the author, so I mean that could be interpreted in several ways, and I wouldn't doubt if someone has interpreted it in that way. On 125, and waked half dead with nothing. So here he's once again he doesn't say why he's waking half dead. Half dead implies that he's tired, he's exhausted, but it's unclear of whether that's from his passionate dream being about fighting or loving Coriolanus. He's not sure. He doesn't really make it clear which it is. On 129, so here he says, into the bowels of ungrateful Rome. So we have more body politic here, where I think by saying the bowels, he may be saying I think saying the bowels, I think that may be kind of a dig at the plebeians, because those are the people who offended him the most, and the bowels that's where excrement and shit goes through. So he may be saying that he wants to attack where the shit lives, which he would probably interpret as the plebeians as well as Brutus and Sicinius. He looks down on them, and he wants to attack the bowels of Rome because that's where the people who betrayed him are, the people who ruined his life are. Then on 133, we have that's what that other line that's said by Phidias, but that may mean that he also sees the plebeians as lesser. He respects Marcus, but the plebeians who kicked his murder soulmate out are undeserving. They're crap. They don't deserve. They don't. So he wants to strike at them for this dishonor to not only to Coriolanus but kind of to him, because they basically threw out his enemy, his greatest foe, and his chance at his chance of killing his murder soulmate, essentially. 133. Who prepared against your territories, though not for Rome itself. So this is just a literary parallel where clearly, because Phidias is still here and the Volsces leaders are still alive, it's not. They're prepared to attack other cities that are basically the Volsces versions of Coriolanus. It's harkening back to that first scene where they're not attacking the Volsces head, that they're not getting their capital, but they are getting important cities. Same thing here. There's a parallel where now it's like the Volsces' turns to get back at Roman cities that are allied with Rome, though not the main city itself. Finally, on 140 through 141, we have whether to knock against the gates of Rome or rudely visit them in parts remote. So this is said by Phidias. He's asking Marcius how they should go about Rome, and I think it's important that he says knocking or visiting, because these are actions that Marcius Coriolanus is taking as well, and that idea of knocking on someone's door and visiting implies that when he does this, he will be essentially a foreigner to Rome. He won't be a part of the city of Rome anymore. He'll be renouncing that. He'll be a stranger visiting and knocking just for violent reasons.